All right, let's dive into this explainer. Over 1.5 billion people tuned in to the final match of the last tournament. Think about that for a second. That is literally a fifth of the entire global population locked onto a single patch of grass. We are talking about a phenomenon that goes way, way beyond a simple game. It's the ultimate geopolitical and cultural flex. So today, we're breaking down the facts, the history, and the absolute staggering scale of the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup. Because as we dive into the source material, it becomes crystal clear that this particular tournament isn't just another chapter in the history books. It is set to completely rewrite the mathematical and geographical rules of the sport, throwing logistical challenges at these squads that they have literally never faced before. Now, if you're watching this, you already know the gravity of this tournament. You know the history, the fierce rivalries, and exactly what it takes to survive a month-long gauntlet against the absolute best squads on the planet. I don't need to tell you what a World Cup is. But what happens when the biggest sporting event on Earth gets physically and mathematically too massive for its traditional borders? That is the core question at the heart of our analysis today. Every 4 years, fans from every single corner of the globe expect this seamless, awe-inspiring spectacle. But the infrastructure, the player's stamina, and just the sheer administrative willpower required to pull off this next iteration, it's going to push the entire sporting world right to its absolute breaking point. And that brings us to the monumental return of the tournament in 2026. The source material we're looking at today makes a very bold but honestly highly substantiated claim. This upcoming World Cup promises to completely redefine the future of football. FIFA hasn't just tweaked the edges of the competition here. They have fundamentally re-engineered the whole engine. And this decision to dramatically expand was really driven by a desire to globalize the revenue and the reach of the game, opening up commercial markets that were essentially locked out before. So it's coming back bigger than ever, and the scale of what is being planned is truly staggering. But to truly wrap our heads around why 2026 is going to be such a massive and, somewhat controversial paradigm shift, we first need to look at the historical foundation it's actively disrupting. Let's take a quick, methodical look back at the evolution of the game. Since its very first edition, way back in 1930, the World Cup has never actually been a static event. It's always been this living, breathing entity that grows to reflect the modern world. We saw it expand from a tight 16-team knockout format to 24 teams in 1982, and then to that familiar 32-team structure in 1998. And sure, every single one of those evolutionary leaps brought intense debate, but they also expanded the global footprint of the sport, turning it into the single most watched television event on the planet. It is the ultimate stage where unforgettable moments are forged. And 2026? Well, it's simply the next massive, highly debated leap in that ongoing evolution. When we chart out the defining eras over the years, a super clear pattern of legacy emerges. We start at the beginning in 1930, move through the sheer, undeniable brilliance of Pelé with Brazil, witness the absolute magic Diego Maradona brought to Argentina, and see the commanding tactical leadership of Zinedine Zidane for France. And of course, capping off this incredible historical arc is the 2022 tournament, where Lionel Messi finally lifted the trophy. But look really closely at what that 2022 victory actually represents. It was a massive passing of the torch. Messi's win effectively closed a sprawling, decades-long chapter. That legendary generation is stepping aside, which leaves this totally unprecedented vacuum at the very top of the sport, just in time for the 2026 kickoff. So as we close the book on 2022, we pivot sharply to 2026. And wow, we're entering a drastically different landscape. The traditional 32-team format, that perfect mathematically symmetrical group stage we've relied on for nearly 30 years, completely gone. The logistics alone are enough to make a seasoned team manager sweat. Imagine the sheer physiological toll here. A squad might have to play a grueling match in the thin, exhausting altitude of Mexico City, and then immediately board a plane to face the crushing coastal humidity of Miami just days later. The environmental whiplash is going to be a massive unseen variable, turning this from a pure test of technical skill into a brutal, brutal marathon of physical endurance. The catalyst for all of this logistical chaos comes down to one incredibly crucial number: 48. 48 teams will compete in 2026, officially making it the largest World Cup ever held. Now, let's break down what this actually means mathematically. This expansion fundamentally rewrites the global qualification quotas. Continents like Africa and Asia are seeing their guaranteed slots nearly double. This significantly dilutes that traditional European and South American concentration we're so used to seeing. We are virtually guaranteed to see entirely new nations debuting on the global stage. It also introduces an incredibly complex group stage dynamic, where the math of advancing to the knockout rounds completely changes. It could totally alter how defensively or aggressively the top-tier teams play in their opening matches. To accommodate a tournament of this unprecedented mathematical size, the hosting duties require a staggering amount of infrastructure. So, for the very first time ever, the tournament will be hosted jointly across 3 different countries. The United States, Canada, and Mexico are teaming up as historic co-hosts. The sheer geographical footprint here is absolutely mind-boggling. We're talking about spanning 4 different time zones and drastically different microclimates. The cultural flavors will be incredible, from the electric atmosphere of the Estadio Azteca to the massive modern megastadiums across the US and Canada. But beneath all that celebration, the sprawling nature of this setup introduces a brand new stamina challenge. Success won't just depend on tactics. It's going to heavily rely on sports science, recovery protocols, and how well a squad manages thousands of miles of intense air travel. With the stage stretching across the vast expanse of North America and 48 teams gearing up to battle, the focus naturally shifts to what's going to happen on the pitch. As we get closer, we're tracking a very specific, high-stakes tension defining this era. You've got the established heavyweights, the old guard, desperately trying to maintain their dominance under this completely new, grueling format. And they are going head-to-head against rising teams that essentially have absolutely nothing to lose. The pressure is completely asymmetrical. The favorites are carrying the intense burden of history and expectation, while the hungry challengers step onto the pitch knowing that, hey, under this expanded structure, the path to a deep, chaotic run is wider than it's ever been. You can really see this tension when you contrast the perennial favorites with the emerging threats. Think about the defending champions like Argentina, aiming for back-to-back glory even as their golden generation ages out. Or France, a squad operating with an absolute embarrassment of riches in basically every single position. And obviously, you can never, ever count out Brazil. But then, you pivot over to the challengers. Nations like England and Spain are uniquely positioned to disrupt the old guard this time around. They boast these incredibly deeply integrated youth systems that have just recently matured. That means they're bringing squads overflowing with prime-age talent, perfectly suited to handle the crazy stamina demands of a 48-team marathon. Of course, tactical systems are really only as good as the individuals executing them, right? And we've got a whole new generation of young stars aggressively preparing to take center stage and completely define 2026. I'm talking about transcendent talents like Kylian Mbappé, Jude Bellingham, Lamine Yamal, and Erling Haaland. And what is truly staggering is the context around some of these guys. Consider Lamine Yamal. He'll barely be turning 19 by the time the tournament rolls around, yet he's already expected to anchor Spain's attack. Or look at the immense, nation-sized pressure on Erling Haaland to carry Norway through the newly expanded qualifiers just to get his team to the main stage. These aren't just great players, they are the highly pressurized diamonds of modern football. But even with all those heavyweights and superstars meticulously preparing their tactics, here is the beautiful reality of this tournament. Predicting a winner is virtually impossible. The sport's entire DNA is built on statistical anomalies and massive surprises. We don't have to look back very far to prove this either. Just think of Morocco's historic, logic-defying run to the semifinals in 2022, where they systematically dismantled heavily favored European giants. And under this new expanded 2026 format, the statistical likelihood of those massive upsets actually skyrockets. More matches and more unfamiliar opponents mean way more variables for the top teams to miscalculate. The door for underdogs is propped wide open. Because here is the undeniable truth about football, and our source material captures this perfectly. A single moment can change everything. Literally everything. One brilliantly disguised pass, one lightning-fast counterattack, or just one split-second defensive lapse can instantly topple a heavily favored giant. The addition of 16 extra teams injects a massive element of chaos into the initial stages. Teams that the heavyweights might have historically overlooked, they now have the platform, the global broadcast, and 90 minutes to completely rewrite their nation's sporting history. The margins for error are thinner than ever, and that friction, that is exactly where legendary stories are born. As the countdown to 2026 continues, the global excitement is getting very, very real. We are looking at a true collision of eras here. You've got the grueling reality of multi-nation travel, an unprecedented, expanded field of hungry challengers, and this massive vacuum left by departing legends. It's all swirling together into a perfect storm of global competition. Like the source so beautifully notes, this isn't just another tournament. It is the next chapter in the greatest story football has ever told. It's an epic, entirely unscripted narrative being written by 48 nations in real time, completely pushing the boundaries of what is athletically and logistically possible. So taking all of this in, the unforgiving geographical footprint, the complex new group stage math, and the sheer unpredictability of bringing 48 distinct footballing philosophies together across North America, the ultimate question remains. When that final whistle blows in this completely unfiltered, physically grueling and chaotic new era of football, who do you think is actually going to survive the gauntlet to lift the trophy?